Thank you, everybody, for being here today, to come and see the movie, which is one of the highlights of my career, and I have great memories of. And let me just tell you how this came about. So last summer, I got an invitation to the 25th anniversary of RoboCop, and I read the email, and I thought, no, it can't be 25 years, it's not possible. And then I did the homework, and I went, oh my God, it's 25 years. And we all got together and screened the movie, and it was just amazing. It was as incredible as I remembered it when I first saw it, and everybody was so wonderful. And then I got to thinking afterwards. I started thinking about everybody and how great it was. And for the last 12 years, I've been involved in cancer support. An organization called weSPARK, Cancer Support Center, which is why we're here today. And for those of you who don't know, what we do is we offer free services to cancer patients and their families. And it's pretty amazing. And I thought, I wonder what if I screened the movie? There's so many fans of this film. What if I screened the movie and invited the cast, and we could sort of duplicate or try to duplicate what we did last summer? So I wrote to everybody, and I kind of crossed my fingers, and every single person in the cast, everybody that could be here, wrote back and said, I'm there. And I was just really, really blown away. So I'm very grateful to all of them. They're just an amazing group of people. You're going to get to meet a lot of them later.
Hello, Verhoeven, director. Great producer, Jon Davison. And we all know it starts with a written word, so let's welcome the screenwriters, Ed Neumeier and Michael Miner. We can all feel safer now because Murphy's here. Feel weller. Of course, Louis, who is Nancy Allen, a great actress and a great community artist. Iconic villain, Paul McCrane in the role of Emil. Directly from OCP headquarters, Felton Perry. And another one of the bad guys where we love him is J.C. Goins. Ed and Michael, what was the inspiration for it? Wasn't there a story about seeing the poster of Blade Runner or something?
I'll try to tell this short story. I was on the set of Blade Runner when I was thinking about this idea a long time ago. I didn't even know it was Blade Runner then. It was just this enormous movie that was shooting in my office at what was then a Columbia Warner Brothers studio called TBS, now called Warner. So I went there every night. There were so many people working on the show that they didn't know who was working on it, so I worked on the art department and did that. And eventually I said, what's this movie about? And there was Sean Young walking in a tutu. And I said, they said, well, that's a robot. And I said, no, that can't be. So I had been thinking of this idea about a science fiction hero, and it just sort of came into my head, that RoboCop, next to that blue car that had RoboCop. And that was where the idea of the title came from. The movie, the story I've been thinking about for a while. I met Michael, he'd been thinking of a similar story, and then we wrote the spec script and we did it.
So you guys wrote the script together, right? How did you guys work?
Yeah, a lot of the process really involved John and Paul as well. We wrote a first draft, and there were a lot of through lines, the humor, a lot of things that required 4 other drafts to really make it what you saw on the screen. Much to Paul's tribute, he really shot the script, and that's a writer's journey to execute what was on the page, because many times people veer off, and I think that's part of the reason it's great.
John, how difficult was it to set up the project? Oh, how easy was it?
It was actually surprisingly easy. They wanted me, or Ryan, to do another robot movie called Cherry 2000. And I didn't want to do it. I read it. And, but I said, well, if you want to do a robot movie, why don't you do this robot movie? At least it's a good script.
And you know, I want to underline the fact that John has actually a part in the film. I don't know if you guys know that, but he's the voice of Ed 209. So a special applause for that performance.
Put down your microphone.
I never knew that. I never knew that, John. That's astounding.
How did you come into the movie, Paul? Because you went down, this is your second English-speaking film, but this is your first film in America, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I was asked by, as far as I understand it, by Jon Davison to direct. So, in fact, it took me some time to decide that this was something I could or wanted to do, because when I read it the first time, I thought it was a piece of shit.
And when he agreed to do it, I thought he was crazy.
And I think it's your wife who told you to do it.
Yeah, that's true. All the important decisions of my life are made by my wife, anyhow. Especially if I wanted to come to the United States, because I had really not much desire to do that, because I was very happy, at least to a certain degree in Holland, at least had my own crew and my own cast and all that, and making then the decision when you're 47 to suddenly go to the United States with a different culture and language, I thought was extremely threatening. And she was much more courageous than I. And she said, you know, I'll take care of the kids and you do the movie. So that's how it went. It's true, and something that Michael just said, that there were 4 drafts that we should really emphasize. I want to emphasize that in fact there were only 2 drafts, because when I came in and read the script finally, I said, you know, I want really some changes, because I think Peter Weller in the beginning should have an affair with Nancy Allen. Because I came from Europe, you know. And I asked the writers to achieve that, you know. So they came in, then they wrote the 3rd draft, and then I think that a real intuition somehow was there, that when I read it, I said, this is really not the United States, you know. This is really me trying to be European in the United States. And so I said, let's forget the 3rd draft and go back to the 2nd, so that was the 4th.
And you did Basic Instinct, so eventually you got to have some sex in your film.
Sorry,
you got to do Basic Instinct, and that where you got to have.
Then I could do whatever I wanted, yes. Well, not forgetting showgirls, okay.
Yeah. Here, what was it about this particular character that really spoke to you and really attracted you?
I didn't have any reservation about wanting to do it. I lobbied to do it. My agent and still my great friend was at CA, now retired, Rick Seeger, said, go meet in New York. There's this, he actually called it silly. He says there's a silly movie. But he's a fun guy, and you know, he just said, well, this sounds like a silly movie called RoboCop. Don't you think the title is silly? And I went, yeah, kind of. But he said, well, there's a director named Paul Verhoeven. I said, stop. I've been a fan of Paul's since, you know, Church Delighted, Soldier, Warren, seen them all, man. Fourth Man, Sputters. And I think, to my mind, I mean, you know, what an actor's sensibility of a director is a lot of times different from what the director thinks of his own particular vision. But what my experience of Paul's movies, those particular Fourth Man, you know, like, is a small personal story of people being trapped in a small containment with some major opera of, you know, either fantasy like in Fourth Man, or motorcycle racing spreaders, or the World War II and Soldier of Orange. And I really like this. Paul's, I was crazy about Paul's storytelling technique of telling these personal stories. It's almost like Chekhov, you know. Chekhov, they're bitching about the cherry orchard while a revolution's going on outside. And that was Paul, maybe. So I said, I want to go in, man. This guy makes great movies. And so then I went in and met with Paul, and then there was a dance that John and I did with Paul that I wasn't going to audition because I'm not arrogantly not audition. I don't read well. Auditioning is this, I think I auditioned twice in my life. I bullshitted my way into a career. And I never got anything I auditioned for except one play. And because I read like, almost like RoboCop talks. So, you know, if I read for this guy, it ain't gonna happen. So, you know, I met them at Italian restaurants, whatever that funky place was on the Lassi and La Brea you took us to, John, and I had another conversation. And finally, they were about to pull the trigger on me, and Dino De Laurentiis offered me the lead in his remake of King Kong for some serious loot. I mean, serious loot today. Way more than this one was going to be. And I said, no, man, I'm doing the movie with Verhoeven. And my agent said, well, don't you want to meet Dino? I later on did a movie with Dino. Dino's an amazing guy and a one-off. And so I said, yeah, I'll meet Dino. And I walked into Dino De Laurentiis' office down in Wilshire, and this is Dino's quote. How much money you want then to do this stupid fucking robot movie? And, you know, I kind of danced with him, and then I did a movie for him later. And that's how I got along.
That's great, and you know, we take it for granted that your performance is amazing. There's sound effects and all music, but on set, you had to create this body language, and I think you worked with a coach.
Moni Akin, who's still at Juilliard, and BBC just did a documentary on him. Moni Akin is good. And by the way, I just want to acknowledge, while I got the moment, because I didn't get to at the 20th anniversary, but I do want to acknowledge not only Fulton Perry, but the antagonists, the genius of antagonism in RoboCop. Paul McCrane, Jesse Goins, Calvin Young, Ray Wise, and Kurtwood Smith, who are not with us, but those guys are like. And look, just because I'm on that, you know, the movements had to be done every day, the stretches had to be done every day. Once it was in the suit, I had to do the 20-minute routine, you know, to work it out. It was not, you know, it was not the faint of heart. But look, I want to contextualize this for you. If you star in a film where people mark you forever and little kids still come up and say, would you sign my DVD thing, you know, you sort of get tired of it. It becomes like Dean Martin saying, the best thing I ever did was join Jerry Lewis, and the second best thing I ever did was leave Jerry Lewis. So, you know, I sort of felt like that about RoboCop for a long time. I had not seen it in a movie theater until these two screenings that all of us saw last year, the 20th anniversary, one in Dallas and one at UCLA, where Mike and Ed created it. And you know, it's the first time in about 15 years I'd seen a movie, 16 years I'd seen a movie in a movie theater. And I saw it with my 18-month-old kid, you know, sitting on my lap. And it was the first time I got to sit back in a day and age now and see how brilliant the movie is. And really how fortunate and grateful I am to be part of it. Because the movie is a movie, I think, is anthropological. I think you can watch this movie in 200 years, and if you want to know what the cutting edge of the age of information of America and where it started, where trickle-down theory of politics and privatization started, where, you know, nuclear war games were symbolized, started in a film, where essentially, I think, for my money and my generation, the most acute story of resurrection, it doesn't matter whether you're taking Hebraic myths, Greek myths, Indian myths, Christian myths, whatever, parables, really culminates in it, and the movie is, look, let me get this right. There's a phenomenal artist story. One of the Prussian, Russian diaspora Jews who came to the United States during the Wehrmacht and was inherited by NYU, named Edgar Witt. And Edgar Witt was such an amazing professor of Renaissance Italian art history. He used to practice his lectures in a mirror. And I know people that saw his lectures, they were phenomenal. And one woman is a dozen in the National Gallery. She says, you know, you gotta get Fear of Art by Edgar Witt. I just read this 2 days ago. He starts off by saying, the definition of art, and not in the pretentious, critical sense, but that which lasts and is anthropological, is defined only by 2 criteria. A, it leverages the intelligence, or challenges it. And B, gives you aesthetic delight. And that's it. And there's a whole lot of stuff, he said, that will give you one or the other. And you can enjoy them for the one or the other. But they're not art. But RoboCop's art. That's it.
Tell us about your experience on the film. Working also with Paul, who I know you loved his work.
My agent called and said, I have a script, you need to read it right away because they're casting. And I said, okay, I'll look at it. They sent it over and I looked at the title and I oh, okay. And then I said, well, I'll read a little bit. So I started reading and with no intention of going all the way through, but I couldn't stop. And I remember a feeling when I read the script, I thought, oh my God, I have to make this movie. And you get those feelings sometimes, not often, but you feel that it belongs to you in some way or you were meant to. So, and then I found out, the next question is, well, who's directing it? And they said Paul Verhoeven. And I had seen, the only film I had seen was Soldier of Orange. And I thought, oh my God, now I really have to make this movie. So I went and auditioned, and actually it's sort of a funny story, for me anyway. I read the scene, and Paul was reading it with the actors, and then he asked me to do something different with one of the scenes. I said, oh, do you mind if I take a minute? No, that's okay. And I walk out, and I work on it, and I come back in, and I did it. I said, is that what you want? He said, no, not at all, but it was very interesting. So,
You remember Paul?
so anyway, it was a long journey from there to the set. I went off and did another really terrible movie, and I heard that somebody else was cast. I said, that's not possible, this is my part, you know. And then I ended up coming, and they said, cut your hair, which I did 12 times, 4 different haircuts, hairdressers, and it was pretty awful. But I really would have done anything I so wanted. I really thought this was intelligent and funny and soulful. I thought it had all the components of, you know, a really great movie, and I always have to acknowledge Peter for what he did, because I don't know another person alive that would have had the discipline and the kind of commitment that it really took to withstand the almost torture, really, what he had to go through, and he did it with pretty good spirits most of the time. So his work really made it very easy.
Most of the time.
Most of the time, except for the day you painted your face with polka dots.
And it was a pretty physical role for you. I mean, you were beating people up. That was the first time, wasn't it? I mean,
Yes, the wonderful Randy Moore helped me learn to hold a gun, and you know, we worked on some of that stuff. But then there's of course wonderful editing, and makes you look really good at what you do, and great stunt people. So for that, I'm grateful. It was a wonderful experience.
Peter was so sort of method about this that there was actually a Foley artist on set to make all those sounds. No, I'm lying. I'm just and then Nancy wanted them for when she was moving. Just kidding. This was fun. It's funny because this was a role for me. I played a lot of sort of fragile and sensitive characters prior to this role, and I had about a year before this told my representatives that I wanted to go up for bad guys, and they basically said, "So you don't want to have a career anymore?" But I did decide to do that, and after someone foolishly actually accepted my submission to come in for this role, and it was great. I mean, I auditioned and somehow fooled Paul into casting me and Mike and the others. And I had a great time making it. I also want to applaud Rob Team, who was a spectacular effects makeup artist that you all probably know or certainly know good. I didn't have to go through anything like what Peter did, but I did have to go through about 6.5 hours of makeup the first day and 4.5 hours the second day for the fabulous melting scene, which was the highlight of my acting career. The pinnacle of my skills. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Somebody answer your question.
What was it like shooting that scene and being there? Because there was no Ed 209. There was Paul Verhoeven pretending to be Ed 209. And I remember you were doing that squeaky voice, you know, like you have 40 seconds to comply, whatever. You know. Tell us about the filming of that sequence.
Yeah, well, before that, I would just like to say I cannot at all say that I knew anything about the script or anything like that. Because sort of my specialty as far as Hollywood was concerned, I was either a cop or a good guy, criminal or a policeman. In fact, I was so good at it, I could do the crime and turn around and arrest myself. This was the first role where I was offered to do something besides, you know, putting a switchblade to somebody's head or putting a cuff on a perp and slamming him against the wall. I thought, wow, man. Okay, and
I'm sorry, man. I'm really sorry.
and I got it. I mean, I can't say by how, you know, I mean, Paul saw something in me that obviously was there, where I did a good job faking it, whatever. It was a breakthrough for me. I could be looked at as perhaps, well, yeah, he can play a manager of a McDonald's or something. And when I did this role and working with all these great people, I'm really a fan. I must say that also. I'm a fan, and I've kind of used acting so I can get close to all the great people that are in this business. I mean, it's just fantastic. The great people that I've seen that I only used to see on screen, that now at least I get to be in the same, you know, space with them and maybe say hello. I don't know how to say it any better than that. I'm a fan of everyone up here, because to go from an idea to finally you all and me, all of us, looking at something that becomes a reality, there's nothing more fantastic than that for me, and anything I can think of in human endeavor. That's marvelous. I don't know how to say it. Okay, now to get to the scene.
RoboCop.
Yeah, the RoboCop. We're sitting there, and there was the robot. There was the robot.
Yeah, there was one, but didn't move.
And this guy, no, they had him come in. Clomp, clomp. And, you know, oh, shit, what is that? You know? And then they did the scene, and the voice was there. You have 20 seconds or whatever, drop your whatever. And the kid, Kenny, guys, he's not here today. He was great. You know, said he volunteered, he got up there. And to watch him do that, and watch Ed 209 get ready to take him out, I was really in awe. I was awestruck. When the bullets started, I went under the table for sure. Man. I was like, whoa! And it was a great scene. It's just so fantastic how so many people work together to make RoboCop the movie that it is and will always be, which is cutting edge.
And of course, we all knew you were partnered up with Dirty Harry in Magnum Force, one of my favorites, I would say. So, who would you choose? Would you choose RoboCop as a partner or Dirty Harry? I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
Gee. Let me think about it for a nanosecond.
Hey, well, let me tell you something though. I was a kid watching Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool. I didn't realize it until recently that, you know, I probably watched Magnum Force about 30 or 40 times or whatever I could. And then you ended up in RoboCop. So maybe you created your own opportunity there, sir.
Well, thank you, but yeah, I'll take RoboCop any day.
Yeah, we would.
So I have to, and like we were all saying, I have to give credit to. I would have to really give credit to Paul for that because when I got the script, I mean, I'm like, you know, a new actor. I just been in Los Angeles for maybe a couple of years. And nobody sent me scripts. I got sides. And I usually get sides when I get to the audition. So when they sent me a script, I was like, wow, that's cool. And as I was reading through, you know, the script, it read like an amazing comic book to me. It was like, dude, this should be a comic book. Because it has so many, you know, fantastic elements to it. But the one thing that really got me was there's a sense of humanism. There's a humanistic sense through it that's shared, you know, through the character of RoboCop himself, you know. But so when we got on set and I read it, you know, and when I was doing another thing, my agent called me and said, "Remember that thing you auditioned for like about a month ago? Yeah, well, you got it." I was like, "Oh, great." You know, but when we got on set and we started, you know, working together, yeah, it's all violent and blood and stuff, but we really didn't think about that. Because Paul, even though we stuck to the script, but Paul gave us latitude. He said, create something, you know, give it your flavor, give it your thing, you know, do something with it. Don't just say the line, you know. And so we had a chance to do that. That's freedom, that's what an actor wants. Is the opportunity to do that, to not just say the line, okay, no, it's A, not B, you know, nitpicking and stuff. So we had a chance, we created that, you know, when we were all working together, was to do our own thing. And then, you know, that camaraderie, you know, came from that freedom to create and do what we wanted to do.
Thank you so much. So the film was funny, but it was also very graphic. Did you know you were going to have trouble with the MPA and that there were going to be some...
Well, I didn't know what the MPA was.
ignorance is bliss.
I thought you guys that this was a free country, so.
Wrong.
But then I noticed. I think we had to go back 9 times to the MPA to get our R rating, yeah. But it was something for me difficult to understand, as I tried to tell you, because it is something so weird. If you come from Europe, where these things certainly don't exist to that degree, to suddenly be, put in a corner, isn't it? And that you cannot get out because you sign a contract with the studio, Orion in this case, that says you're making an R. But I signed without even thinking what that was. So then you find out that it is sort of legally impossible to refuse. Yeah. So that was an unpleasant discovery.
Where did you guys shoot the movie? Where did you guys shoot? Do you want to pick it up?
We shot in Dallas. We shot in Pittsburgh.
And
We shot in LA.
just in Pittsburgh as well, that's right.
Yeah, the ugliest ass location I've ever been in.
Hey, that's my hometown, chill out, bro.
Outside, yeah, Menneson, Pennsylvania. One Holiday Inn, an abandoned steel mill for 2 weeks. This is, you know, as Robert Mitchum said, his only criteria for doing a movie was how much and where. And I don't think you would have done that. Dallas was great, but that Pittsburgh thing.
I don't.
In terms of the cutting back of the, I wasn't in the editing room like as much as these guys were, but I felt every time the violence and the torture murder scene was cut back, it got more violent. because of what you didn't see, which was an interesting sort of reversal. A lot like the yearning scene in The Godfather, where Lupo Rossi's head is yanked down below the bar, and then you see the killer's face, and you don't see something Rob Bottin could have done with the eyes bulged out or whatever, but I thought that was an interesting byproduct of it.
For instance, when I first saw Paul's cut of, what's his name of this machine gun film? Kid who can, yeah. When you see Paul's cut, the guy, I think that was one of the things that was cut, Paul, was that machine gunning of the guy.
It's an overhead shot. It was an overhead shot. It was one
But it looks like in Paul's cut, it's hysterical. I mean, the violence morphs into this guy being a ping pong ball, and subsequently there's a satire in it. Then when you cut that out, it's like this horrific machine gun. So they're like hoisting on their own petard by cutting that thing. And it's actually more like a abstraction of the deal when you see the original of it.
Nancy, I'm curious, when you guys finished shooting the movie, and that can apply to all the actors actually, to all of you guys, did you have a sense of that you had done, what we see? Did you have a sense of what the film was going to end up being, and were you anxious to see it finish, or did you not really know?
Well, before I shot anything, I saw the dailies of the emergency room scene. And that, right there, I knew that was astounding. But yes, I think I knew it would be a great movie. I didn't know it would have a kind of broad appeal, because I thought it was very, dark. But you do get a sense on the set when everything's working, like a well-oiled machine, the cast, the chemistry, everything. But it surprised me when it was a broad hit like that.
And Paul, you directed also, and did you learn a lot from Paul?
Me? I'm Peter. Paul McCrane.
I'm over here. Two chairs to your left.
I get called Paul so much in my life, I can't begin to tell you.
And I get called Ron. But, another story. Did I learn a lot from Paul? Yeah, how could you not? Paul's a spectacular director. He's both extraordinarily visual and highly, highly intelligent, and has a great sense of humor and a very complex mind. So just to be exposed and to be around him when we were shooting, the little at that time that I was really watching for directorial things, I certainly did and absorbed a lot. And I don't know, can I use Paul's face right yet? No. But anything that I've seen that Paul's done is, it is a lesson. Yeah, Paul's an extraordinary director, so it's a great thing to learn from. I want to tell one story, which is the scene where we bad guys shoot up the street in Dallas. This is entirely my memory, and they have no bearing, no resemblance to reality whatsoever. As I recall through the film, one of the things that Paul was trying to do was to exaggerate the violence, and I don't mean, he wanted it very big, for a philosophical reason, which I thought was great and interesting. And as I recall, there was an ongoing somewhat struggle, I would say, with special effects to get things bigger, bigger explosions and bigger things like this, not quite to the level of Quentin Tarantino with all the blood in Django, but anyway, buckets of blood. Anyway, so that night of that shooting of the street, we had this big gun, and we're playing with the gun, and then I am going to shoot out a storefront window in this street, which you just watched. And they're setting it all up, and they take me and the other actors back to look at the giant cannons of things that are going to come flying through the window and all this kind of stuff. And the storefront, as you may recall, was here. Kurtwood Smith and who else were? Ray Wise. Ray was right next to the standing in the bricks right there. And they told me, very careful, don't stand in front of the glass, but as close to it as you can right next to it, because otherwise you get all that stuff. And we had, I don't know, 5 cameras rolling that night, maybe more, Paul, I don't recall. And there are people, this is on the street in Dallas in the middle of the night, And across the street directly, there's an office building or something, and there are people like ourselves just kind of watching, watching the film to be made. And our first aide was on a bullhorn just as they were rolling all the cameras saying, "Get back! You're not safe there! Get back!" These people that are behind me. And I hear action and I say, okay, and I went boom, and what I saw, I don't quite look at it in the film, but what I saw was a wall of flame coming right at me, to which I then turned and felt what was obviously not flame, but was the heat of it just go right past me. And this glass, safety glass, is pelting me. And I turn around and I look, and Kurtwood Smith's leather jacket is smoking right here. And we continue to see cut. And everybody gathers around and goes, "Oh, yeah, is everybody okay? Is everybody okay?" Yeah. And Paul said to me, he said, I'm going to do a terrible, terrible accent. I apologize, Paul. He said, normally I don't ask an actor to do something I don't do myself, but this time I think I will do it.
Listen, on that day, I got to reiterate Paul's thing. Just another thing is, the legendary John Milius, who wrote Apocalypse Now, and if you don't know who John Milius is, you have to leave the theater.
And Megan, of course.
Yeah, but John Milius, who I used to smoke cigars with, was talking about a year and a half ago, had an aneurysm. I was telling this to Paul, and he had an aneurysm, and he has perfect mental capacity, but he could not speak very many words. And I see him maybe about once every couple of months. And he does this whenever I see him. I mean, he does Dalton and Paul, and he goes, "I like it!" That's his salute, you can't say hi here. So, but listen, I had a hot date that night, on that Friday night, and yes, I do reiterate Paul's dissatisfaction with FX, that Edro Neon 9 wasn't big enough, the shotgun blast wasn't big enough, the gas station explosion wasn't big enough, and the hot date I have on this Friday night, these guys are shooting that scene, and my hot date, instead of doing something else, just, "Can I go to your movie set?" And you're shooting in Deep Ellum, and I go, "Sure, this is just what I want to do on a hot date. Go back to the fucking movie set." And so we come to this movie set, man, and we turn the corner, and I mean, it is Armageddon, busted cars, water lamps, street posts, windows, like bullshit in the street, an incinerated camera, everything. I don't know. It's nothing I've ever seen. And like people are like, the neighbors are out on the street complaining. Extra fire trucks have showed up. It is a cacophony I've never seen on a movie set. And Paul's in the middle of it going, "Fantastic! Fantastic!" Yeah, finally got what he wants. Destroyed the world. I mean, physically, it looked like it does in the movie. And if you don't believe what Paul says, watch the movie again. You can see Ray Wise and Kirkwood, right? When that thing blows, boom, that air ball goes by them. And that little figure in the overhead shot running, that is him, really running. That ain't no stunt guy, man. That's some woozy-doozy scene, man. That is something.
That was the historic Black Blues District of Dallas that we grew up in that night. I guess it survived. When we were in Dallas, the film commissioner said that the fire chief of Dallas, she said he had to change his pants after that. And nothing else was the same for filmmakers for 10 years in Dallas.
No, man, that was something. I was stunned when I saw that street.
The studio wanted us, in preparation of this scene, to make the bad guys really bad. So Ed and I added something that was later cut out of the script. We had on the main street, a pet store, and in the window was a little puppy. And Parker looks over at the gang and goes, and shoots the pet store. They had the studio make that way, came into the office. Paul said, "Get that out of there." We just killed 30 people, but we couldn't kill a puppy.
This is a movie that's made before CGI. The great Phil Tippett, stop motion, the great David Corridors with the score. Frank was your editor. Tell us about the incredible team that you had on this movie, which was really a feat, wasn't it?
You mean the special effect team?
Special effect, and also your team on the score and your editors.
Well, the special effect team was chosen by Jon Davison. I didn't know any of these people. I mean, I came in the United States knowing nothing about special effects. So I had not used them at all in my Dutch movies, and Jon knew all these people and had been working with them, and he brought these people to me, Phil Tippett and RoboCop both. So the person that is really responsible for this wonderful work that they did is Jon.
Basil.
Bravo.
What about Basil?
Basil. But it was a compliment to you.
Thank you.
Well, Basil, unfortunately, you might all know, but Basil died a couple of years ago, and I had worked with Basil before, and I did my first, say, English spoken movie, what's called a medieval adventure story called Flesh and Blood, and I had chosen Basil based on Conan, on the score he did for Conan, the first Conan, is Arnold. And I asked him if he wanted to do Flesh and Blood, because I thought, okay, Conan and Flesh and Blood, medieval, that's a bit similar. And so he did that, and then when we got to do RoboCop, I felt that it was, for me, the only person that I really knew, in fact. So I asked Jon if we could get Basil, and we did. I think you made the deal, and it took us a long time basically to find, let's say, the tone of the movie, the tone of the score, and the instrumentation and stuff like that. Because I'm an enormous fan of film music, and I think my movies have been elevated, nearly all of them, by great composers, notably Basil Polidoros and Jerry Goldsmith.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, and I was, in seriousness, I apologize for preempting Paul, because essentially mostly what I do now is direct television, and action television, and I'm asked all the time about whether or not, so when you ask that, I need jerk, you know, I didn't realize you're talking to Paul, about what Paul Verhoeven is influenced me on, and I did want to say, specifically, just to tag or footnote what McCrane said, is that I rip off Paul all the time. But first of all, the set demeanor and speed of Paul's set is fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, all actors know the worst thing to do is sit around in a Winnebago. And you know, our friend Ed Begley's in the audience. I'm sure a lot of actors, you know. But when you're doing a movie or television or something like that, and you got a director comes out and says, I don't know, maybe we put the camera over there. You know, and you know, this means another hour and a half for you in a Winnebago playing, you know, New York crosswords while this guy gets his ass out ahead of his ass. So Paul hits the set going, you know, in seventh gear with a game plan and a vision, and subsequently the momentum you feel as an actor is that you're really part of a Formula One team. You know, and there's no time in Winnebago except for special effects, makeup, and so forth. And there's nothing better for actors, as we all know, and when you're on the set, there's a momentum and you're flying into the scene because the director is doing that. And he's not sitting around trying to figure out where the camera goes. But I just have to say, you know, you'll see Paul's, I don't know, he's changed his style sometimes movie to movie, but particularly in RoboCop, you'll see these running dolly shots and all of a sudden panning the other way, like the one in the car. I just ripped that off 2 nights ago, directing Longmire, exact same shot. And you know, the guy, the gaffer goes, wow, that's fantastic, man. You're running to the car and panning as the car goes. Listen, yeah, it's my idea. You know? Also, you see a lot of things in Paul's films where like he'll hinge somebody walking to somebody walking toward you one way, obliquely. It's really, really elegant filmmaking, and it's really difficult to do unless you have very good actors, A, and B, it's a wonderful thing to steal from people like Paul, particularly for television, where you are so many times stuck in a box set and having to shove people into close-ups. So the more you move the camera, the more you move people, the more the movie moves. And I'm ripping off Paul all the time. He's a huge inspiration to me. So I just wanted to tag Paul.
Cool. Thank you so much.
My question is for Paul. The getaway scene where you're being hit and kicked by Kurtwood Smith, did you ever kick him back?
Not on camera.
I was just curious. Well, thank you, gentlemen.
The thing that you're most well known, RoboCop, probably for everybody. So being affiliated with the movie, what's the your most favorite and least favorite part about being affiliated with a movie.
There is no least favorite.
I will try to answer that. The best thing for me over the years has been all the people I got to work with who turned out to be really smart, and the fact that I still know them and that we still talk about this as sort of a little miracle that will happen to us. That's sort of the thing I like the most about it. I think the thing I like the least about it is when I see bad versions of it out there. I hope that the next one coming won't be bad.
For me, I think that as actors, we don't go into, some people go to just have fun. But I think as an artist, I want to have, personally, some impact in the world. I want to do something that has some lasting value to it. As an actor, you want to affect your audience. And so, in doing this film and then seeing, how amazing, it really turned out, because along with that, I have to agree with Paul. I will co-sign with Mr. McCrane about the street scene. It was crazy. It was crazy. And Paul says to me, back up. Where are my actors? Stand right here. But you want to be a part of something that's iconic, and so this film is just that. I remember when we did the screening at, I remember it was the old DGA theater or something on Wilshire. And there was a lot of conflict between Paul and the special effects. He kept wanting it bigger, and they kept saying, "This is fucking crazy." But when we saw the product, it was like, whoa, wow. Because for me, I couldn't really see the vision, based on what we were doing, the small things that we were doing to make the film, the elements of it. But when you saw all put together, it was you just had to go like this. Because Paul's vision was so amazing, it was beyond what we could understand. And so the film being as iconic, for people to stand up and say, this really affected my life, that's the best part for any artist, is to be able to have that kind of impact and be a part of something that's truly iconic. And there is no downside, I agree.
I'll add one thing briefly that I think Ed feels the same way, that as a writer being involved in something that has a narrative density. And I always marveled at how dense the screenplay was, and Paul executed it in a way. You only have less than 120 minutes or less, and get that much information and a story arc into this visual entertainment. I feel great to be associated with that.
Felton, you want to say something?
The line, tastes like baby food. I have heard that line, and it's like many times I've gone like, what? RoboCop, don't you remember saying that? Oh yeah, right. So for my character anyway, the most memorable line in the audience is when they say, tastes like baby food. I love it. Thank you.
Not certainly to the crew, but anybody, if you were making this movie today, what would be the biggest differences and the biggest challenges about it?
$100 million.
You cannot make this movie today.
I think one of the most important things for making the movie was probably the economy of means that we had, and that forces everybody to really be completely creative, and because let's say the expensive solutions were just not there. We had to find it in another way, and I think the best example of that is when I started to do the movie, I was planning to have a production design like Blade Runner, because that was in my mind, something like that. And I was basically discussing that with Jon Davison, and then Jon said, listen Paul, you can have wonderful production design, or you get a good robo suit. And you can choose, because we don't have money for both. And so basically that's why when all the emphasis came on this on the costume or the suit, that Peter Weller was wearing, which is a fantastic, wonderful creation by Rob Bottin, not surpassed in any way till now, and of course based to a certain degree on another movie, Metropolis, by Fritz Lang. So there is really a continuity in history there, but I thought the fact that we had not, let's say, all the means, only, I mean, it was made for around 13, and that was even at that time was really cheap, but it forced you in a certain way to become extremely creative to achieve what was in the script, and I think the movie enormously benefited by that rigorous, basically economic approach that Jon basically put on the table, and I'm very thankful for that because it is certainly my most inspired American movie. Thank you, Jon. Yeah.
I'd just like to ask Mr. Weller, have you kept one of the costumes?
Funny you should ask. Funny you should ask. Rob Bottin, and I wouldn't be a reader what Paul said about the genius of that based on Metropolis, but that's a genius suit. I mean, there's nothing CGI, gummed up, no computer, no nothing. You know, there's no tweaks on that at all. What you're seeing is what it is. The painting of it, the movement of it, the detail of it. And I gotta also add that the guy who applied that third act face, Stefan Dupuis, who's one of the Dick Smith protege, Dick Smith's the legend prosthetic guy in the world. That's Stefan is his protege, and that guy's also a genius, because that guy's like, what was your question? No, I know, funny thing you say this, because I'm just talking to Ed Neumeier today. I have a 20-month-old son. And I have this marvelous painting of Paul, me, the camera crew, that a guy did, the Dallas painter did, and I have that ball, that's essentially all I have, other than this photograph, signed by Paul today. And I'm bugging the hell out of Ed Neumeier to get in touch with Rob, because I know he's got 6 of those saved.
I'm writing to Rob right now. Now Peter is telling everyone how you're a genius, so you'll make him a robo-helmet for his
No, don't do it in any Ciceronian rhetoric. Just get the fucking helmet. And all I want is that helmet top, to give to my kid. So I do not. And Rob and Orion were adamant that none of that stuff left. And, so no one has any evidence of Rob.
Okay.
But I'm working on it, I'll let you know.
Her and weSPARK took me from a very dark place into light many years ago.
Bravo.
I want to ask the writers, when they wrote the scene where Lewis gets all shot to pieces, did they have in the back of their mind making a Robo-Girl in the sequel?
We didn't want to do anything of the sort. That was, to me, that was like the Bionic Woman. You're old enough to understand that reference. And I thought, no, we're not going to do that.
Wasn't there actually a scene with Nancy in the hospital?
There's a scene at the end that got cut off where she says, where we know she's okay, and she says that if you can't stand the heat, get out.
That's in the Blu-ray. That was added in the Blu-ray.
Is it really?
The other interesting thing about Lewis's character, and the name is really an androgynous name. Lewis could be a man or a woman, and that was important as well in the sort of genderless world that Paul tried to create in the police locker room.
Thank you so much. I'd like to ask Nancy to close this discussion, because you're the one who put this whole thing together.
Well, I guess first of all, I just want to thank all of this wonderful Robo team that is here, that came out for fun and for free to support what I'm doing, and just say it was really, for me, the highlight of my career, working with everyone here, and wonderful team, and thanking everybody here for coming and supporting, and of course thank you, Laurent, and that's really it. I'm just really grateful to all of you. So thank you.
Thank you guys.